Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your time and your viewership. It really means a lot. And in today's episode, I'm going to be giving you my first impressions on a fragrance that came out last year actually in January of 2020. And this one is called L'Homme Rochas. So make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin this first impression video of L'Homme Rochas, I do want to mention that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, if you like fragrance reviews just like this one, this is kind of a first impression though, but also top 10 lists, giveaways, unboxings, and more, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. All you have to do is click on that red button in the corner, and of course, while you're at it, please be sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell icon. So here we have a fragrance that was composed by Bruno Jovanovic. This one came out in January of 2020, and I had the opportunity to smell it as soon as it came out. I actually almost ran entirely through my sample. This is an official sample from the company. I think I might have gotten it at Macy's or Nordstrom or something like that. And I remember smelling it initially and I thought to myself, well, this is kind of a redundant purchase. I didn't really need it in my collection. And as you can tell, I still don't own a bottle just because if I haven't purchased it by now, chances are I'm not going to purchase it unless I overly love it. So there do come times when I smell fragrances either at the store or I'll get a decant or a sample of it or something like that, and it just doesn't resonate with me. You know, it's not something that I felt that immediate impulse and that need to go out there and buy it. That doesn't negate the quality of the fragrance, and of course, I'm not suggesting that it's a bad fragrance by any means, but it's just not one that I felt I needed in my collection at the moment. Now in 2021, things are changing a little bit with all of these new designers that are coming out. I do want to provide a service for my subscribers, so oftentimes you're unsure whether you need to go out there and actually spend your money on a fragrance, if it's worth picking up or if it's redundant to something that you already have in your collection. And so I hope that I am able to provide that value, hopefully saving you a little bit of money in the process. But it goes without saying, you know, there are going to be some fragrances out there that we enjoy, some that we love, some that we don't really like. So let's go ahead and get into L'Homme Rochas, and I'll tell you why I haven't purchased it and why this is more of a first impression video. So I just sprayed it again to remind myself of the aroma, and what I can say is it opens up very bright and fresh. You can tell there's some citrus going on in here. I think the note breakdown says pineapple from the last time that I checked. I don't get any sort of pineapple in this fragrance, and there are a lot of other fragrances that do give off that very bright and tart pineapple note. I'm not necessarily getting that from this fragrance. I think I read a review where some person was comparing it to Legend by Montblanc. So then I guess it could also be compared to Abercrombie & Fitch's Fierce because they too actually smell quite similar. And I get why they made that connection. It kind of has like this clean, fresh, youthful mall scent type of an appeal to it. It's a little musky. It has nuances of lavender. It has that clean base that is found in those other fragrances to which this has gotten compared. But I think the note that I'm getting the most from this one is juniper berry. And juniper berry has a very woodsy appeal. Unlike other berries, it actually doesn't smell sweet or fruity or ripe or anything like that. It actually smells woodsy, and it has that astringent appeal about it that I mentioned. And I guess when I smelled this one, it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Perry Ellis 360 Ferment, which I really don't like. And I was also able to somewhat compare this one to Dolce & Gabbana K. Now, anybody who has seen my review of the Eau de Toilette of Dolce & Gabbana K, you know that it's not one of my favorite fragrances. I didn't really care for it too much. The Eau de Parfum, on the other hand, in my opinion, is a drastic improvement. It has that boozy quality. It has the spices. It has a lot of really interesting elements going on in there. But the Eau de Toilette didn't really cater to my personal tastes. So as soon as I smelled this one, I think that was the thing that was going through my head. Like, oh, this has a very strong note of juniper berry, even though the other notes in the note breakdown sound really interesting. The blood orange, the geranium, the basil. I thought it was going to be this fresh, almost minty, aromatic fragrance. But it really just gives off a certain freshness about it that I do find in some other fragrances, but not ones that completely wow me. And the other fragrance that this one has not really gotten compared to, but there's an element in here and a slight nuance and a tendency that kind of leans in this other fragrance's direction, is it kind of reminds me a little bit of Prada L'Homme. And so this is Rochas L'Homme. It reminded me a little bit of Prada L'Homme, where it kind of has this clean white floral and slightly soapy aspect about it. And I was never really a fan of Prada L'Homme either. So here I was connecting this fragrance to other fragrances that I've tried that I haven't really loved. And while I would say it's probably a closer comparison to compare this one to Dolce & Gabbana K than it is to compare it to Prada L'Homme, there's still something about this one that didn't really tickle my fancy, so to speak. Now in the base, you do have some woodsy notes, and I'm sure that they work hand in hand with the juniper, which also gives off a woodsy appeal in and of itself. But there's this almost like fresh ambroxan-like quality about it. And to think of a fragrance that was released in 2020, like it totally makes sense, right? Especially if you're going to follow the scented footsteps of somebody like a Dior Sauvage or like a Coach for Men or a Tiffany & Co. for him, or one of those fresh fragrances, Missoni being another one. I know that one kind of gets compared a little bit to Bleu de Chanel, which is not as ambroxan heavy as Dior Sauvage. But I guess the one thing really working in the favor of this fragrance is that in terms of that utilization of ambroxan, it doesn't smell staticky or metallic in the opening. And so if that was one of the things that kind of discouraged you from Dior Sauvage, I think you're going to really enjoy this one because it doesn't have that component to it. But for me, it kind of has like this faux soapy quality. You know, I've smelled a lot of really soapy fragrances. Vodka on the Rocks by Kilian Paris is one that I think smells really soapy. I know there's also Infusion D'Homme, which is now called Infusion d'Iris Cidre by Prada. That one is like one of the best soapy fragrances on the market. And then of course in the way of vetiver, we have Mugler Cologne by Thierry Mugler. We also have Original Vetiver by Creed. But in my personal opinion, this one does have a little bit of flair to it. I can pick up on some of those aromatic notes, but it's not overly minty or rosy, which is, I thought, you know, a character trait that the geranium was going to bring into the fragrance. It's also not overwhelmingly aromatic in any way, which I thought the basil was going to do. It's not fruity or ripe because of the pineapple that's in here. So it's almost like all of these notes are being disfigured in this composition. And although I thought that I was really going to be able to sense those notes and they were going to have a really interesting role in this composition, it feels like all of them are kind of vying for attention and none of them really stand out in this fragrance, except for the juniper berry, of which I'm not the biggest fan. So for that reason, I didn't really purchase this fragrance. I will admit on my skin, it gave me about 6 hours longevity. Projection was actually really good, and I would say above average, just because it has a lot of those fresh nuances. And so on account of the citrus and I guess that pineapple note or ingredient that's in here allows this fragrance to be a little bit more volatile in the opening, but I was kind of expecting this one to last a little bit longer, but the projection is really good. I also find it to be super versatile. I think it does match up with the sentiments of a lot of other masculine fragrances on the designer side as of late. And so if you are looking for those fresh ambroxan, citrusy, musky types of fragrances, I think you're certainly going to find that in Rochas L'Homme as well. And the presentation on the actual bottle is actually pretty cool. So I do enjoy that. But I don't love the fragrance, you know, and my apologies to those of you who do, but I think we're all mature enough to understand that fragrance is a very personal thing. And so we like to buy fragrances that cater to our personal tastes. Although I would still recommend this fragrance, especially if it can be found for a good price. I haven't done my research, I do apologize, but if I find a really good price for this online, I am going to link it down below. But I love other fragrances that this company has put out. So this one just didn't do it for me, but that's okay. Like I said, you know, whatever floats our boat, you know, to each his own or her own. And so there are fragrances out there that I absolutely love and I still wear religiously to this day. I'm on my second, third, fourth bottle of. This is not going to be one of them. So in any case, I was very happy to have the opportunity to share my thoughts and my pseudo first impressions with you guys. And I really hope that you took something of value from this video. And of course, I would also like to ask for you to subscribe to this channel if you did take something of value, and if you found any aspect of this video interesting or helpful. It would really mean a lot to me. All you have to do is click on that red button in the corner, and of course, while you're at it, please be sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell icon. This way, whenever I do put out these videos, again, they will be delivered straight to your feed. You never need to worry about missing any of my future uploads. Thanks again for watching. Love you all. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.